Welcome to the Top Texas Lawyers Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the law firm of Abercrombie and Sanchez, PLLC. You can find us on the internet at astxlegal.com or by calling 1-888-981-7509. Your hosts are Bryan Abercrombie and Samuel Sanchez. Bryan has been practicing law for 18 years and is board certified by the Texas Board of Legal Specialization in the area of family law. Sam has been practicing for 13 years, is licensed in both Texas and Florida, and is a certified mediator. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and all views are the opinion of the hosts. It is not designed to provide legal advice for your particular legal matter, and it should not replace the advice of competent counsel. Welcome, and we hope you enjoy the Top Texas Lawyers Podcast. We're back, ladies and gentlemen, after a little bit of a hiatus, right?
Yep, a little bit.
A little bit of a hiatus. Okay, so now here we are back on the Top Texas Lawyers Podcast. So I heard today that Lori Loughlin is going to the big house for 2 months.
Oh, man.
Aunt Becky going to the big house.
You know, Aunt Becky's going to be really popular there, I have a feeling.
Yes. Okay, so
she's a looker.
What are we calling this thing? The our COVID edition? We'll call it.
I think this is we'll call it our COVID call.
All right. So a little bit about celebrity divorces in the news.
Oh, yes, our celebrity corner. Well, obviously, probably the biggest one that's out as of late since our last episode is Dr. Dre, one of my favorites.
Yes.
One of the bad boys from California. He's not feeling the California love.
He is not. Got the beats. Got the beats going, though.
Yeah.
Got that beats money.
Got some huge dollars out there. Wife filed for divorce. He apparently had a rock solid prenup, which according to her, or according to the news, and who can believe the news, but she's filed in her pleadings that he tore it up ceremonially in front of her, saying that it was no longer valid. So she's going to try to set it aside. Legal sources say obviously that it's pretty rock solid. So whether or not that's going to be sufficient to get her there, we'll see. But that should definitely be a lesson for everyone, on a couple different points. First of all, prenups are important. You may start out as a ghetto boy or, a gangster or a millionaire. Either way, you want to make sure that you're protecting assets for later on down the road. Not that you're planning for a marriage not to make it, but they don't always end up the way you think they're going to. And that can just help everybody at the conclusion of a relationship.
She's got nothing to lose, so she just fires a shot across the bow to see if she can get the thing set aside, right?
Yeah, a lot of times there's strategy in that, especially when you're talking about over $1 billion estate. Because if she could set it aside, then wow, huge windfall. Yeah. If she can't, the legal expenses, sometimes he may be willing to pay her what he'd spend in the legal arena to go away. So, there's definitely strategy in it. But.
Okay, so let's talk about another thing that might require some strategy. And this is kind of a hot topic right now, especially given that we've got a lot of homeschool, we've got a lot of virtual online learning, and we've got some schools going back in session. So we've got, kind of this COVID-19 crisis we're dealing with, and then we've got education decisions on the other hand. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a huge issue for parents across the country, really globally, is, in the middle of a pandemic, do you send your kids to school? Well, some school districts are saying in person, some are saying virtual, some are saying a combination thereof. But the concern that a lot of parents have is, let's say you're the non-custodial parent or the parent who is not the primary parent. So your child is living predominantly with another parent. And this parent either works or lacks the educational background to be, guiding your student for online education purposes, because as much as, school districts, I think, are going to try to do their best to try to get a curriculum set up that kids can utilize and fundamentally at least gather some education, through this process. Is it going to be the same as an in-person, education setting with a, certified or, a teacher who's licensed and has that educational background? That's a really challenging and tall order, in my opinion. And so parents are really having concerns about somebody who's not qualified potentially affecting their children's educational status long term.
Right.
And it's starting a lot of litigation.
Yes, and then obviously this is a situation where Texas has in the joint managing conservatorship and every divorce you're talking about one of the parents or the other parents, or it's a joint decision on education decisions. And this is really, I mean, normally the education, especially with kids going to public school, it's normally the decision is really, unless you have a child with special needs or something like that, you've got a decision just to whether that child gets passed on to the next grade, or very simple decisions like electives, or whether a child gets passed on to a next grade, not complicated decisions. Now you've got a decision to make whether or not that child stays home with one of the parents, or whether that child goes back into a learning environment in the classroom. So it's creating a lot of litigation, or it can at
Yeah,
least.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, the big piece of it is, so let's just start with Texas, right? Texas, just like you said, these rights that exist between parents, the right for educational decisions and the right to declare who's the primary parent based on the possession schedule. Those will affect your school district and your choice of attendance to school. When we originally, talk about these orders from a court looks at it and says, like, most kids in Texas go to public school because we have a good public school system for the most part. Well, in that situation, that's not homeschooling. Homeschooling typically falls outside of, a primary decision into an educational decision. And what that has created is most parents, when we think about homeschool, it's not like it's got the greatest reputation in the world for turning out these great scholars, right? And so, like, I'm not saying that there aren't some great curriculums that are out there and there haven't been some individuals who've done that successfully, but overall, it hasn't really had the best reputation in the courtroom.
Right.
And so now when you say, okay, they're attending public school at home, that's the weirdest, combination, this amalgam of homeschooling. So meaning that a parent is actually really fundamentally guiding that kid's education as opposed to an educator. But it's this weird hybrid. And so I understand where parents have that concern, because if you look at it and you say, hey, my wife, who I'm about to get divorced from, has, graduated from high school, never went to college, has no degree, no background, no patience for being a teacher, but yet she's going to have to assume that role because I still have a career in this COVID period where I have to go to work, whether it be in person or virtual. I don't have the ability to do that, but I sure as hell don't trust her to do it. Then what do you do?
Right. And then what do you do on the decision where, like my child's, school district, you have the choice of keeping your kid home and doing virtual learning for the first 9 weeks, or sending your kiddo to school. And, there's a number one, a safety concern. Do you feel confident that the kids can go back to school safely without, running the risk of contracting this virus? Or, do you keep them at home with your situation? Maybe you have a parent that's not so great at the educational aspects and you got to go to work, and, so that's the real conundrum the parents are having.
Yeah, it's definitely creating a lot of concern and litigation where parents are going in and wanting to at least try to modify an order. And especially when you talk about, like, we've talked about it in the past in previous podcasts about these rights and how they're distributed in the state of Texas. It's a little different in the state of Florida, but in Texas, there's three ways these rights are typically done. One, which is the default in the Texas Family Code, which is independent rights between parents. Well, you and I have had that conversation. Independent rights, for our listeners, basically means everybody can make a decision when they want to. There's no obligation to have a meeting of the minds or any joint decision before you decide. So let's say let's complicate it even more. You have a 50-50 possession schedule, meaning that there is no primary. And what you've said is that the child is going to remain in a geographic restriction area, but not necessarily attend certain schools. Well, then one parent says, I don't trust you. My kid's going to go to this really, highfalutin virtual school. And the other parent says, no way, I got to work. So my kid is going to actually go to in-person schooling. So you're absolutely going to have to file something at that point to get in front of a court. And the problem is, COVID has, as we've discussed, really made courts somewhat inaccessible at times in
Right.
relation to these types of issues.
So you've got to file a motion, then you got to get in front of a judge, which, depending on your county and depending on the spikes and and everything else, you may or may not be able to get on. You may be able to get a Zoom hearing. Most people can get a Zoom hearing, but it's sometimes running a little slow. So, what do you do in the meantime? I mean, there's, do courts consider it an emergency? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So, your guess is as good as mine about what you do in that situation.
Not
It's
only
kind of
that,
uncharted territory.
absolutely. And not only that, Brian, but every court has a different perspective, as we've seen, just like everybody else has a different perspective. Some people want, masks in every hearing virtual. Other judges are like, get your butt in here. I want it in person. And you're still going to wear a mask. Others are like, well, I'm not going to wear a mask because I don't believe it. I mean, it's just all over the freaking board. And so you've really got to have a really in-depth conversation with your counsel in your particular area to figure out, like, Quanta, what is the court's perspective? Have they litigated this issue before? Have they seen any of the tendencies that this court has done in relation to their rulings onto these issues before you just launch off and say, like, hey, let's go nuclear and get into court and things get worse?
And
Especially,
I would tell, people that come into my office, just see if you can sit down with your ex or your, significant other and come up with a solution, for the short term. I mean, if you're just absolutely at odds, that's what the court is there for. But I mean, try to take an adult approach with this thing and see if you can get a consensus agreement, from the outset. I mean, some people in our neighborhood are hiring tutors. I've seen that. I've seen, online tutors. I've seen, somebody else monitoring the education for a couple of families. I've seen all kinds of different, approaches to all this. But yeah, I mean, if the line of communication is open at all, I would at least see if you can get some kind of consensus with the other parent. That said, sometimes that's not the case, and then that's when you end up in court.
yeah, and I get it because, a lot of parents look at the science right now where, like as an example, the American Academy of Pediatrics has said, that, while it's still considered a relatively low risk of children developing severe COVID-19 issues, there are several children that have died. And so who wants to take a chance with their children, whether they're going to get sick or whether they're, even if it's a small case, parents don't want to do that.
Right.
And so,
Low
but then
risk doesn't mean
right.
no risk.
No risk, exactly. And if you look at those numbers currently, I mean, those cases, cumulatively since we've started back in the past month have doubled. This is what they're reporting. Now, what does that mean? Everybody talks about the numbers and like, are they legitimate? Are they being double reported? Who the hell knows? And so, most parents are going to err on the side of caution. And I would agree with you, Brian, that, as a parent, I think you need to at least first attempt to have a very, valid and open and honest conversation with the other side to say, hey, here, my concerns are legitimate, or I don't feel like we share the same concerns, but is there a solution in the middle before you go spending a bunch of money to get into court? However, let's take the scenario, Brian, where you can't agree. You had the conversation, they're not agreeing, you're at odds. What next?
You file your emergency motion and you see if you can get an emergency hearing with the judge. I mean, that's the fastest way to go about doing it, especially with school starting in a lot of districts. You want that decision. And sometimes sometimes there's mediation clauses in divorce decrees or potentially arbitration you could get to and get it done quickly. But ultimately, if you're at an independent, like you were talking about before, if you're at an independent decision making, then I mean, I guess dad could homeschool on his time and mom can homeschool on her time, or or whatever, and that just would make it absolutely insane. But a lot of these schools are not allowing that. They're saying you're all in for one or the other. So you're either all in for homeschool or you're all in for on-campus school. So you have to get a decision. I mean, the tiebreakers are always good. I mean, a lot of times we put tiebreakers in a decree, but I don't know that the school counselor is going to be comfortable making a decision on whether or not the child attends school or does virtual learning at home. So that's where a judge might have to come in, and you hope they can get a decision fast, but you don't know.
No, and in that situation, so I've advised clients, like they want to know, like, well, let's say it does become an issue, because the first thing I tell them is like, how do you know it's a problem? Like, sometimes it's going to take you going in there and at least attempting it. You may say, hey, this person, only did 2 years of associate college, and I don't think they're going to be able to teach my child, who's in kindergarten. Well, coloring and, can you color inside the line when you just had 2 years of associate's college? Probably. If we're talking about, hey, they're a freshman, they're in AP classes and they're doing advanced, molecular science in their, type of school, their STEM school, then probably not. I mean, so the scenario is going to be different based on the facts. And I always encourage people, just remember two things. Look, self-help is never going to be a remedy, right? So you going
Right.
out and dragging your child and saying, we're checking you out, and then the parent drags them back in and checks them back in, and you have this seesaw battle, is never going to be good for your kids. So if you can't really reach some type of resolution, I agree with you. You have to get some assistance, and that's typically going to be from a court or an arbitrator, depending on the clauses in your divorce decree or your SAPSR suit or SAPSR order. I mean, but on top of that, I would really encourage parents to really think through the options that are available and start gathering information, because that court probably doesn't know any more than the parents know, meaning that you're going to have to take time and effort to educate the court about the situation. So you're going to have to know the educational, assessment of the area schools or whatever program that they're trying to enroll, or you're going to have to know the background and have some history about her failures or his failures in relation to a parent who's trying to lead some educational process for a child. Because going into court and saying you don't like it because you don't like it, probably not going to be the most successful way to attack it.
Yeah, and keep in mind that these judges, oftentimes you're going to have to see them again if you go in for a modification. So if you're really going to take an unreasonable position just because you don't like the guy or you don't like the lady or whatever, that's probably going to come back and have an impact the next time you go down in front of that judge. So you really got to make sure this is the hill you want to die on.
Yeah, and it's tepid water. It's water that everybody's kind of sticking their toes in or getting their feet in or trying to jump in with both feet, but nobody's really swam the channel. And so, it's still relatively new, and judges are still trying to figure out how best to approach it. So the best thing I would recommend is help them,
And I
gather
think we're
that
finding
information,
out.
be prepared.
I think we're finding out a lot more about this virus every day. So, uh, your guess is as good as mine about which scientists or which doctors you believe. But I know we're finding out more information, and I'm sure this will bear itself out, hopefully in the next few months. But in the meantime, what do you do? And that's the real situation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, the other piece of that, Brian, I would tell you is okay. You're going to get into a fist fight over school. Now you're in it, you're litigating, you've gathered your stuff. Let's say the court comes out and says, you know what, public school, virtual school, online school, whatever it is, it's fine the way whoever is already set up in the order is going to proceed. What I always tell people is, look, modifications are not a one and done. This is the type of thing that can come back repetitively as an issue as people struggle with it. Now, I hate to tell you to, hey, go out and let your child, start to get behind in school, because you have to let somebody, pass or fail. But that's really the type of environment that parents are going to find themselves in should they not get the kind of ruling that they want up front. You may have to sit back, watch matters kind of progress, take and document your concerns, and then come back and take another bite at the apple based on what's transpiring. Because obviously, this is something that courts are going to take, very seriously, the educational welfare, emotional well-being of a child, because it's not just can they learn, right? It's the environment, their social skills, what's happening, in their lives as a whole, that a court is going to look at is what the situation that presents itself in their best interest. That's whether you're in
Right.
Florida, whether you're in Texas, that's the foundational inquiry. And so don't lose hope if you look at it and you're like, gosh, I don't really have anything that's meat and potatoes, as we say, to get in a court and throw at people and say, look, if this is what they've done wrong. Then it may take a little bit of due diligence on your part and some investigation to see how it's going. And if it does take a turn turn south, then you're ready to respond.
Right. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers. I think that covers the kind of the situation. We're in a lot of unknowns, and we got to move forward as best we can, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Pandemic, Brian, we've talked about this in a couple of different episodes, but doggone it, it's novel.
Yeah,
It's
it
not just
surely is.
novel for scientists, it's novel for the legal world and profession. There are some things, though, I think that, along with what we're talking about with parents, that every person should really still kind of hear and contemplate and prepare themselves for, whatever may come, don't you think?
Yeah, and I've also had a number of clients calling me upset because parent A had child over at the house, and then they decided to have 5 people over for a cookout, and who was there, and who did they expose the child to, and this and that, and I've gotten a lot of those kinds of calls coming in, and you just got to bring a level of sanity to this thing. Um, a pandemic doesn't necessarily give you the right to pry into the other person's life and you know figure out everything they're could possibly be doing with the child when the child is in their in their possession. So you got to bring a level of reasonableness to this thing.
One, many courts are looking at kind of COVID kind of skeptically at the moment and saying, like, the Supreme Court in Texas has said, that's not enough. Like, it's not enough that you're scared of what could happen with COVID for you to come in and say, I'm going to refuse to do X, Y, or Z, or allow a parent to do X, Y, and Z with the child. So, to your point, you really got to kind of put a lid on the pot as much as you can and make sure that there's, actually legitimate concerns that are going to get you somewhere if you're trying to decide to go into court.
At some point you just got to have to, okay, the other parent should be looking out for the best interest of the child as well. I mean, it's kind of like the old leaving the child in the room with the pit bull. You better hope that other parent knows that pit bull and knows that child is going to be safe in that room. At some point, unfortunately, you have to rely on the other parent being responsible and reasonable. And if that's not the case, then I urge you to get legal action, legal help right away. But make sure it's worth your while to do it.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, I think there's a couple of things that I guess, passing on that same note that I've been trying to tell families and parents, there's a lot to consider as far as concerns that exist in relation to living during a pandemic and taking care of your family, your children. Obviously we're talking about an educational aspect of what's in front of parents, but I would also tell you, what we're seeing a lot of with this pandemic is if people are getting sick instantly, they're like, well, what happens if the worst were to happen, right? To my spouse, to my children, like, do I have something that's going to provide for them should the worst happen? It's always better, what we say, we always plan for the worst and hope for the best, right?
Right.
And so in that situation, I mean, I really just been talking to clients about make sure, as a final note, and it's not really related to school, but it's just related to families, that you have an estate plan in place. Like, doggone it, like, I promise you, your siblings, your children, your spouse are gonna, they're gonna thank you a million times over that you have contacted a lawyer, talked about what should happen in worst case scenario, and prepared an estate plan, whether it be a trust or a will package, whatever it is that's going to help should the worst happen, whether it's going to be I'm incapacitated and I need, a medical power of attorney for you to be able to make decisions for me. Or I don't want my spouse to make them because we're about to go through a divorce. So maybe I want my mom to make them, somebody who actually wants to wish me well instead of, terrible things. It's just a lot of things to think through. And I think really your estate plan is one of them that I've really encouraged families to consider and contemplate.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the gestation of this, you can be on a ventilator in 10 days and dead in 20, it's careful about it. It just causes you to, take another look at life and, what's more important. And like we talked about, I know on numerous podcasts before, your estate plan is what's left for the people that come behind you. So make sure it's the way that you want it, and make sure the people that, if you're in a position where you aren't able to make decisions for yourself, and make sure that you've got somebody there to help you make decisions, or to make decisions for you that you can rely on and that you can trust, or, if you're dealing with children, and somebody there to take care of your children if there's an issue. Because unfortunately, the scariest part about this is probably not knowing we don't know everything, and people are trying to live their lives as best they can, but we're operating on just whatever information we seem to get, and we obviously we're learning more and more. Science is learning more and more about this every day, but it doesn't mean they know everything, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be prepared in case the worst case scenario happens.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Brian, in that regards. I do feel like if there's one thing that you want, is you want to ensure, I think every parent, husband, wife, mother, father, looks at it and says, like, if I get ill, if something happens to me that's extremely detrimental, or I die, I sure don't want to pass along headaches and make other people's lives more difficult or worse in that situation. It's bad enough that I'm not there to take care of them, but how can I preserve, their well-being, their quality of life, when I'm gone? And it's a really simple process, typically, to
Right.
go in, meet with a lawyer, and have them craft something that is going to allay those concerns and really provide security for your family for the
And
future.
it's really, it really transcends kind of the pandemic too. I mean, you need to have that stuff, anyway. But I mean, this kind of pandemic, as much as it's a tragedy, it's also an opportunity for people to kind of reevaluate things and look at their lives and look at okay, these are the kinds of things that I need to be concerned about, and these are the kinds of things I need to plan and prepare for. So you know, coronavirus pandemic aside, you need to have this stuff in place in case you get hit by a bus or something. These are the kinds of things that really help, and they're not difficult to do. And for most people, they have the standard stuff that people own. They have houses, cars, retirement accounts. It's not that difficult to get an estate plan together, very quickly that covers you in the event that you can't you're in a position where you can't make decisions, or you unexpectedly pass away.
Yep, absolutely, brother. It's just insurance for your family's life for the future.
Absolutely.
So
So
I
we
couldn't
have
agree
kind of
more.
an exciting announcement. Sam, you want to take it or should I?
Oh no, I'll go ahead and jump in a little bit. You can clean it up because you're the good guy. So we obviously together we have worked in the legal field for 3 decades now, and tremendous amount of experience and expertise between the two of us. We put together an ebook that I think is going to be fantastic for listeners and potential clients and existing clients, to really take in relation to the divorce process. Now, we anticipate obviously expanding this out into the different areas of law that we practice in. So you'll probably see more of those coming. But the first one is going to be, dealing with divorce, what to do, how to prepare, kind of things to look forward to as you go through. I think it's going to be a tremendous asset and resource for individuals who are listening to our podcast and saying, I wish I just had a little more concrete information to kind of go on. I think this guide is going to be a really helpful tool for individuals that are going to go
Yeah,
through
it's
that
going to be
process.
kind of like a survival guide, I guess, for lack of a better word. You're contemplating a divorce process, what to expect, what kinds of things am I going to be looking at, what kinds of things am I going to be faced with. Those are the kinds of things that it's going to take a look at. So
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great resource. I think individuals are really going to find it tremendously helpful in anticipation of, or even if you're in the process to kind of figure out, like, where am I at? What do I need to do? Where should I be going? So,
we spent some time with it, and obviously nothing beats the advice of a good attorney. But I mean, obviously, any way that we can kind of try to help out, you getting started in that process, we're willing to do. We're here to answer questions. We're here to help you move through that process, and that's what we do. That's what we've devoted the majority of our practice to, is helping families. So, how do they get a hold of us, Sam?
well, you can hit us up at our website. That's astxlegal.com. And you can reach me in the Dallas Fort Worth area, or if it's a Florida case, my direct line is 817-914-5470.
We also have an 800 line if you want to reach us. I mean, my direct line is in Houston, and it's 281-374-4741. And then our 800 line, which is probably the best place to get us, you can call from anywhere, is 1-888-981-7509. But you can find all of that information on our website. And we are happy to help you. We are happy to take a look at your case. We're happy to, assist you. We're family lawyers, and we deal with family matters. So that's all I have for today. I'm happy to be back with you, Sam. I think we've had a little bit of a hiatus. We were getting kids ready for school, getting them all off and done, and all that kind of stuff, and wrapping up some summer. But we're going to be back on this thing hot and heavy come fall, huh?
Agreed. Yeah, looking forward to some of the topics that are upcoming. So we're definitely going to deal with some more with firearms and businesses. I know that's one of the upcoming ones. I know we're also looking at some very specific merger clauses in relation to some of the business transactional work that we've done in the past. So a lot of things up and coming that I think are going to be tremendously helpful and insightful to our listeners. And I look forward to it, brother. Glad to be back.
Glad to be back. And like I said, we're trying to cover areas that we think are, kind of relevant to what's going on. And I know this world has completely changed in the last 6 months. We've got a totally different things that have become priorities now that weren't necessarily priorities 6 months ago. So we're trying to take that all into consideration, and we're trying to plan our topics accordingly. But I urge you to subscribe if you like us, and let's look forward to joining you in the weeks to come.
Sounds great, brother.
All right, take care, Sam. Have a great weekend.
All right, you too, my friend.
All right, take care. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the Top Texas Lawyers podcast. If you would like a consultation with either Bryan or Sam, please call 1-888-981-7509 or visit us on the web at astxlegal.com. Once again, that's astxlegal.com. Thank you very much.